No one's chance for economic mobility should come down to a coin flip. New research study by the Education Strategy Group, ESG, estimates that there are at least 7,000 coin flip high schools where if you're Black, Hispanic, or from a low-income family, your chance of proceeding into higher education directly after high school is less than 50%. People, that is nearly 1 in every 3 high school in this country. I sat down with Ryan Rainey, Senior Director of Education Strategy Group and lead author on this new research.
What we found was that there are about 7,000 high schools, which is about a third of all high schools in the US, where students, if you're Black or brown, you have a less than a coin's flip chance of moving on to higher education after you graduate. So that's not even counting the students that drop out in the space. So they made it to high school, they made it across the stage. And then a year or two later, nobody can find them. And we know that just given all the economic data, especially as we're seeing in the COVID pandemic, of how important having higher education, some higher education is for long-term economic opportunities, it's a huge, huge gap, and one that we felt was important to address and try to lift up some of the successful stories of schools, districts, states that are prioritizing a set of what we call momentum metrics that are important and are what we think are the most predictive measures of students' successful transition into higher education.
Did you catch that? Ryan and his team's research does not even include those students who dropped out of high school. Their research estimates that there's 1 million students who graduate from high school and do not have a college or job program in line for the next 12 months post-graduation. The country has reduced the number of dropout factories by half since 2008. So it's time to turn our attention to these new identified coin flip high schools, because ample amount of research shows that an additional credential after high school is important to succeed and to thrive in today's 21st century workforce. Districts and states need to commit to monitoring and intervening on new sets of post-secondary outcomes, which ESG has established as momentum metrics, so that we as a country can flip the trajectory of post-secondary preparation and success for millions of students. A few of the most critical momentum metrics presented by ESG are 9th grade GPA, FAFSA completion, college applications, college match, and gateway course completion. To see the complete list and why these metrics matter, click on the link in the description below. Based off of ESG's buckets and momentum metrics, I see the biggest vulnerability is in the handoff between high schools and colleges. High schools often stop tracking and supporting students after graduation in early June, leaving 2 months of no support for new high school graduates who now need to enroll into college in the fall. During COVID-19, class of 2020 has had more time away from educational support, so this time between high school and college has been extended.
I love track. I love to run. And I'm a huge track and field fiend. And every time I watch the 4x100, we've had years, a history of dominating 4x100, except for when we dropped the baton, right? And so just sitting there thinking like, the best teams in the world, when USA does well, it's all about how runner 1 is sprinting at the same time that runner 2 is sprinting. And they're actually passing that baton with momentum to sort of accelerate. The worst thing that could happen is stopping, handing the baton or throwing the baton, and then the second person getting off and running. And that's what we have right now in America. Like, we have a high school system that is preparing students to graduate, saying, here's your baton, you carry it across the line, figure out how to get to higher education. And once you're there at higher education, sometimes the institution will help you carry forward, sometimes they won't, right? And so it's that need for shared accountability and shared momentum that is really, really important and critical in the policy space and in the actual implementation space right now. And I think we're hearing growing interest among district and state leaders to find out ways to better align those two systems. And we hope that these measures and like trying to prioritize things and putting some data around it can force real conversations about how do we actually keep and support student momentum? How do we help them navigate the maze that is the summer between high school graduation and potential enrollment, right? And so you're absolutely right that that has been the hardest thing to quantify It's not in accountability systems by and large. Very few districts are tracking their own post-secondary enrollment rates. It's really left and put to the students and their families to figure that out in a way that it shouldn't be. And so we hope that by forcing the data conversation, we can actually start having real conversations about what does it mean to hold a student's hand in a supportive way across that barrier.
Only 32 states include post-secondary enrollment rates in their federally required school report cards, and 16 of those include a breakdown by subgroups. The number of states publishing this data are growing over time. However, major hurdles remain to ensure that educators and administrators can use the data for improvements. Without student-level information, educators and advisors will struggle to provide targeted support. Without disaggregated information at the school, district, or state level, policymakers and administrators will struggle to rectify gaps across races, ethnicities, income levels, and geographies. School districts and state leaders need data to enact change. Significant work needs to be done to ensure that data on student progress through post-secondary education are broadly available.
There was some a recent survey done by the Rand Corporation, and dramatic numbers of teachers, high school teachers, in fact, less than 50% of high school teachers knew anything about where their students went on or whether they went on after high school. And the principal numbers are not much better. That's a troubling statistic because it means that everyone is sort of myopically focused on what's in front of them, even though we know that what's in front of them is not the finish line.
Not empowering schools with this information is like NASA not having information if the rocket actually made it to the moon. They can't just be like, it was a successful launch, I saw them take off. A program that is making sure our students get to the moon is a federally funded program called Gear Up, which means gaining early awareness and readiness for undergraduate programs. Gear Up helps increase low-income students' enrollment into college and is focused on helping districts track students' post-secondary success. The grant is required to help keep students accountable and track their freshman year and showcase that students are entering sophomore year at higher rates. Gear Up is instrumental in providing communities, states, and the Department of Education important data that otherwise would not be recorded or tracked. Today, in fact, starts the beginning of the National Gear Up Week, which creates awareness and highlights the communities who have been directly impacted by the growth in college graduation rates across the country. Due to the nature of our work at Student Success Agency, we want to take the moment to thank all of the Gear Up professionals and students who allow us to be a part of their journey. We want every student to reach their full potential, and we truly believe you are doing the important work to expand access, open doors, and reimagine how we measure school success. Thank you for watching This Week in Education. Please share with an educator, teacher, or another Gear Up professional. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.